I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first thing is to approve the regular agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Rick Seiler, seconded by Sean Ryan, on approving the regular agenda as presented. If anyone has any other questions, issues? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Next is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions or issues on the consent agenda?
I have a number of questions, so if we want to treat it, ask them at this time, or if you want to treat them separately?
Nope, we're gonna,
That'd be up to you whether you want to pull them off to address them separately, or if you just have questions, we can go through that.
I think we'll just address them on the consent agenda. And then we can approve it after the questions. Go ahead, Bruce, you had some
Yeah, I have
questions?
some general questions. I'd like to have a better understanding just how we're going to be using electronic document storage, consent agenda number E. Just generally, if you could speak to what are we hoping to gain out of it? How is it going to work? How is it going to change our operation? Is there going to be a policy as far as retainage, things like that?
So our plan of what we'll use it for is things like personnel files, documents that need to be retained per the document retainage store policy from the state. So right now we house our documents within City Hall, and it takes up quite a bit of paper space. So what Laserfiche would do is keep up with that retention schedule and file things away. They'd still be accessible, but put them in like a different file area once they've reached their retention date that they're no longer needed. So there's ease of, if we had like a data request, we can go straight to Laserfiche and email documents directly from there instead of needing to go to paper storage. Here, like dig through boxes, dig through files. And it's just as easy if we had a document emailed to us that we wanted to store, we can just send to Laserfiche, and it would directly go from our email to a Laserfiche file and
Are these going to be cloud storage or server storage?
cloud storage.
And so are we going to have an agreement for cloud?
Yes,
Is that in addition to, or is that part of this?
it's part of this. So it's 1 terabyte of data.
And how long do we feel that a terabyte's going to last for us?
I guess I don't have a time frame of how long that would last us based on how much we're putting in there.
Are we
Right
going
now, I know that the comparing company was only 50 gigabytes of data, so the terabyte we felt would get us farther. So I could follow up with CTS, but I don't know how much is on our server, like in-house.
I just try to have an understanding how this is going to change our operation, or if it's going to change, are we thinking it's going to save us anything in the future?
So I think one
Overhead.
of the big savings, not only for physical space across the city, is the time it takes to search for stuff. When we're searching for stuff within the last year or so, it's not terrible because we all kind of have a general memory of it. The nice thing about a program like Laserfiche that your general search features don't have is you can search within documents while you're searching for stuff. So if we've scanned all this stuff in and we know that the EDA made an agreement with the community center, for example, but you know it happened sometime in the 90s, we're not sure when, you can just type in like your keywords and it'll search those documents for you and pull it out. Right now, you're basically pulling at titles and hoping that they're saved in a format that makes sense to us now when they were saved 30, 40 years ago. The other thing she mentioned with the retention is just huge because right now retention involves us having 1 or 2 employees kind of keep track of that schedule and then have to periodically go downstairs and act as the retention person and start removing stuff that no longer should be retained or filing other stuff away. And so Laserfiche, in a way, will basically do that for us. And so I know whether it's Laserfiche or that DocuWare, it seems like more and more cities especially are going to these various document storage things because they just cut back on time that staff spends having to go through things for records requests and looking up other documents when they're looking them up for elected officials and that sort of thing.
And how is it gonna be indexed? Are you gonna be able to go, is it, you just put it all on and you search it by keywords, as you said, or are we gonna have a
So that is,
structure?
yep, so that's where we're gonna basically build out a policy of how stuff gets saved on there to help us index, and so going forward, there's this system of how it's going forward, and then, like I said, even if 40 years from now, if we're still using Laserfiche and they're indexing in a different way, it'll allow them to search by keyword within the document instead of just looking at the title to try to find stuff that they're looking for.
So there's different search mechanisms, you know, you could search like who created it, or keywords, or dates. And the more that you use the program, it starts to understand like your work you're doing. So if you're saving things, if you're continually saving like personnel files, it's gonna start to memorize, like, do you wanna save this here? Just for that time's sake of starting to know this looks like a personnel document, and giving you suggestions of where it's gonna save. Where right now, you know, we're going to the server and picking different folders and folders within there and nested that way, so.
So
And then
I-
there'd be user restricted access, so things that Josh saves can be determined on like who can view that, or if it's a public document.
My belief, I think, is we have a separate email server where we're keeping our email history and then delete them according to state law, or to make sure we don't keep them for subpoena reasons and things like that. But are we dovetailing emails then into this program? Are we gonna be putting them into
It certainly could
this
be,
feature?
yeah, so like right now, our emails, it's a manual system of, I don't think, at least I have not figured out a capable way in Outlook of sorting through all that, where Laserfiche would do a lot of that for you. You could set it up to send, like she said, automatically send stuff to Laserfiche as needed, as we know that it should be kept.
So you could choose to, if you wanted to save the email, the body of an email and an attachment, or just the body of an email, you could send a Laserfiche that way. Or if you just wanted an attachment, example, an agreement, then you could just send the agreement to the Laserfiche file folder, so.
Will there be, I'm sorry, Bruce. Go ahead.
I'm just rattling on here, but
Yeah.
are we going to have a line in the sand where we're gonna use this from this day forward, or are we going to do historical retention and try to have a program, or
Yep,
for people to work
so
to download them, or?
looking back to my days when I was a city planner for the city of Brighton, Colorado, I was the new guy on staff for a while, and it was my job to scan in old files. So a lot of companies, and I think even these guys, offered to do some work for us to do scanning stuff in. I believe we talked internally that it was far more efficient for staff in their spare time to do it, because otherwise they're scanning it in and then coming and asking you, well, where do you want this saved at? So we can build out our own policies, and we will start working backwards. Theoretically, we would have everything within City Hall saved, so we wouldn't need to necessarily keep all the paper on staff. So yes, we would be able to work backwards with it, and if we had to pull minutes from a city council meeting in 1947, we'd be able to do that.
Well, I encourage you to just consider a plan of action, because you might want to prioritize certain things going back much further and some more recent, and if you're going to spend the time and effort, overhead, salary costs to do it, prioritize what you feel is the most important.
Correct. I would guess that we'd probably start with things we tend to get the most records requests for, which are things like permits and whatnot, that are saved way on back. But then as you, like I said, dig into city council minutes or other things that we may search for the staff internally, just to kind of cut back on that time as well.
Yeah, I would encourage, anything legal or real estate related or anything
Yep.
personnel would be.
Well, there'll be certain file formats that Laserfiche will accept, or your basic PDF doc, Excel. I'm just a little concerned that if Laserfiche goes out of business, or we choose a different vendor, that all of that information will be portable to that new vendor.
Yeah, so they've been around for, I think, over 40 years. But to your point, I mean, if we would want to switch a vendor, or if they would go out of business, those electronic documents, just like right now, how we use Municode for our city council minutes, and we'd be able to transfer all of
Okay,
that
so
over.
it's not a proprietary file
Correct.
system, okay.
Yep.
What about security measures at their end?
I'd have to look at their agreement to speak to it.
Yeah, I didn't really see anything addressing security in the agreement, so I was just wondering if there was a conversation or some other separate document that would outline who has access to this information, the confidentiality requirements. So
Sure.
just,
Yeah, we've had a lot of communication with them over the last year, I'd say. So we can certainly reach back out. Bringing it to the meeting tonight, they're implementing a new plan, a pricing plan, January 1. So we're hoping to get approval tonight to save potentially tens of thousands of dollars because the plan that we would go on would no longer be available January 1. So
and I can certainly appreciate that, but I would maybe like to caveat approval based on what we understand of their security measures. And, you know, if their employees have access to our files in some way, you know, the industry that I used to work in, on occasion there would be file issues, and an employee would actually have to open that file to determine why it didn't upload, why it didn't transfer, and so I would have some concerns that there's a certain set of eyes that shouldn't be seeing certain information. So just
internally or at the Laserfish
at
level?
Laserfish.
Okay.
I think we're pretty good internally what we have allow access to.
Yeah, and I think if it would make you feel any better, while we haven't discussed it internally, I would guess most of the information that we'd put in here would ultimately be public information that we're holding on to. And
Including personnel files?
I mean, like I said, obviously there's stuff, this was in most of the information
Yeah.
that we put in here would be public information. We can certainly check on that if it makes you feel any better. I know that Laserfish is one of the bigger companies in the whole game, and cities across America are using them. I think I was just looking up something on Burnsville's website today, and they must use Laserfish because all their city council packets went to a Laserfish website when I went to grab them. So,
But the industry that I came from, we gave those same assurances to many of our customers, but when there is a technical issue, sometimes eyes have to take a look at that document. So we just need to make sure that, you know, they have protocol in place, that only certain eyes are looking at it for certain reasons.
So looking on their website, they have 12 categories under security, everything from single sign-on, password, vulnerability, scanning, firewalls, each with detail under those headers. But at quick glance here, it's fine-grained access control, and it pertains to administrators for accessing rights and limiting control access for documents and objects. So they have security tags on items, and then they have a repository audit log that has details of user actions, viewing, modifying, creating, and deleting documents. So just to very broadly try to answer your question from.
Sure. I appreciate that. Again, I just didn't see anything in the contract, and, you know, that's kind of where we're signing off on their services, and just want to make sure that it is addressed. I don't anticipate anything happening, but then we've all had security breaches of our information, so it does happen.
And the access is only internal, so we won't ever use this as a way to the public to gain access to information.
Correct.
it certainly has that feature if we would want it to. I don't know if we have had those talks internally that we would use it that way yet. Like I said, there may come a day where we would, but at this point, that is not the intent of it.
Well, just so we all understand that we're not approving that at this point in
Yeah.
time, because that does create a lot of different security issues once we get outside our security framework here. And this is a third-party provider then when we start to go with the cloud. Do we have anything on the cloud now?
We do, I know, have a backup of our whole system. So like our whole system is backed up
Through CIT though?
through CTS, backed it
CTS,
up
rather.
on-site, in Mankato, and in the cloud. But in terms of cloud data, I guess I would have to go through certain programs we have as to whether we're keeping them on-site or not. I don't have it off the top of my head if there are any, like, the permit provider, I think, Ken, is, because that's all on-site, right?
We also have some of that in Amazon Web Service. servers on the cloud, in the cloud as well.
So this is a 5-year plan, is that correct? Or that we're trying to get in?
Correct.
Correct.
And then how do we, let's say we find that Laserfish isn't the company we want to go with, or their costs spike after those 5-year, 5% increases. Obviously, the information's ours, but how easy, is there a penalty to get out of it at that time? And
I mean, I would assume it, like, at that point, your contract is up, so I don't know if there's a penalty or get out. If we just kind of end our services, we would basically just download all of our information back to internal servers and move on our way at that point.
okay,
There's not a penalty, it would just be whether or not we're renewing.
okay.
It seems like we had this up once before when Mike was here. That's my question, is the same ones that Maggie's going with. Where does the security for like personnel and all of that go?
Well, and I don't see an out clause in the contract either. So that in the event we are not completely satisfied with their services or something unfortunately would go awry, that there is not a way to get out of the contract.
How about under number 4D, says cancellation of subscription requires a 90-day notice, would that
And it
constitute?
doesn't, but it doesn't say for cause or not.
Okay.
So it doesn't really give me an idea of, is this for, I mean, we can just back out at any time, or does it have to be for cause? But it's prior to the renewal date, so we give them a 90-day notice prior to the renewal date, so we're locked in for that 5-year plan. And so I don't see an out if we were to terminate early.
I mean, prior to the 5 years?
Prior to the 5 years, yeah.
So
Okay,
I
I
don't know if
see
there
it.
is, because in 3A, it mentions
see
that
it.
early termination will result in the
Yeah.
entire remaining balance of the original contract
Yeah,
becoming due.
I see it. So the term of the agreement is for 1 year and shall renew for a 1-year term unless terminated by either party with or without cause. And that's the language I was looking for, is with or without cause.
Is that in 3?
Yes,
Okay.
But it does say 3A, if your 5-year pricing, if a 5-year pricing guarantee has been chosen, your term is a 5-year term.
yeah,
So we're basically getting into a 5-year contract
yeah,
at this price. I know when they talked to us before, there certainly were options for shorter ones,
Okay.
but there was no guarantee on what those prices
Yeah.
would look like if we stayed in for 5 years.
yeah. And it says early termination will result in the entire remaining balance to be due and payable. So that gives me a little pause, because if something goes wrong, we're not happy, we're locked in and we have to pay it the full 5 years.
Like I said, we were given a shorter contract option, but there was no guarantee on any sort of increases one way or the other on that.
Yeah.
So that's why,
Yeah.
knowing what we wanted to use it for, that was staff's recommendation to
Okay.
do the full 5 years.
Yeah, and I know the time we're 2 weeks away before this offer goes off the table, but I would be a lot more comfortable if there was language in here, that we would be able to terminate even with cause, so we don't have to terminate without cause. But if there's something that we're not happy with that goes wrong, I don't see why we should be locked in for a 5-year term, that we would be able to terminate early with cause.
And I think, yeah, per this, they're just saying we're able to guarantee pricing if you're able to stick with us for 5 years.
Yeah, but Josh, what if something goes wrong? Data is leaked, something, I mean, I'm just
Yep.
being hypothetical, I'm being the devil's advocate here, that something goes wrong in year 3 and we're still on the hook for the last 2 years of the contract. We're paying for something that we're not going to use because we've run into a problem. So I would be a lot more comfortable if there was a term in 3A that unless, you know, we'll be locked in for 5 years, but if we need to terminate for cause,
And yeah, we can
we
certainly
should be
take
able
that
to
back.
do that.
Obviously, I can't promise that they'll be willing to put something in the agreement like that, because this.
Yeah, but
like I
we
said,
have to
yeah.
protect us.
Nope, I get
Right.
that.
Yep.
I get that. I'm just stating I can't guarantee that they'll be willing to put that.
There are no guarantees anywhere. So I get it, but again, this is kind of my area of interest and expertise, and there should always be a termination that you could back out in the event that something goes wrong.
So do you want to pull letter E out of the consent agenda?
At this point, that would be my recommendation until we can get some assurances, one way or the other, that maybe we can get some language in there for termination for cause. So we're not locked into the 5 years and have to pay in the event that something goes wrong.
Okay,
So
so,
I'd say Chuck, just as a point of order then, to pull something would just require 2, so herself and a second to pull something off the consent.
right, but we have questions on F too, so if there's issues that we might have to pull that off, you know, I'm gonna wait till we're done with the questions on F, and then we'll make a motion to
Okay,
pull out letter E
okay.
for discussion later. Okay, Bruce, did you have questions on letter F also?
Yes, thank you. Just want to get to it. So I think it's pretty straightforward what this is and what's happening here, but I'm just wondering, is there any operational wise how this works? Are we having existing staff then, and just one person being trained as a pilot then, or are we gonna have multiple people? Is there ongoing expense for getting the pilot license renewed? I'm just not that familiar with it, so.
There is initial licensing that is about $100 a person, and then there's one license that can be utilized by the city for the FAA. I think the licenses are good for 5 years, and then you have to recertify. So there is a licensing fee, and then the other fee, and in talking with Ken, there was some money budgeted for planning for the purchase of a drone for them that we were gonna potentially utilize for some of that licensing. On the police department side, we would utilize a few licenses to have officers trained. We operate 2 teams of officers, so when one team is working, the other team is off. So we would have coverage with both teams. And our idea with this is that they would travel in the squad cars with us and be deployed immediately upon the need.
So is this the same level? I don't understand in detail anyway, but certain height dictates the degree of pilot's license that you need.
Correct.
Are we at the minimum or up? Are we the same as the fire department or?
It would be the same
as the fire department?
license, yep.
So that's not the lowest level, but the second level up,
Correct.
maybe?
Yep.
Okay. And then the policy that you referred to, is that a statutory policy that's in place already?
There are statutory laws that govern the use of them, and then your operating policy kind of mirrors the state law for what you can and can't use them for. So we do have a policy that has been drafted along with our other policies through Lexipol. Lexipol continues to update their policies and procedures when laws change and things get updated. So They have attorneys that review all these policies, and they're very similar to the other agencies in our area that have the same the same drones in place.
So will we be adopting the city council this policy?
It's a police policy, so it's just a policy that we enact similar to like when, I'll say like our use of force policy or domestic abuse policy or any other policies that are part of our policy manual. So as a city, no, it's a police department policy, part of our operating and policies and procedures.
I guess I'll leave that discussion for another day, but I'm thinking there's certain policies that should be approved by the city council, and maybe here we haven't approved police department policies in the past, but, so it's kind of a procedure that's gonna be.
Correct, how they be utilized, yep.
So any regular officer will have the ability to take this out of the trunk and fly it, or does he need supervisor approval or your approval?
Yeah,
or-
part of the policy says that it will be approved, each deployment will be approved by the chief of police or the designee, which would be a supervisor, if that came down to it. Our policy says that because, no, we can't just put it up for no reason, right? State law says that we can't just fly them around and fly it into your backyard. We have to have a reason, there has to be a reason, and if we're gonna fly it into someone's backyard, into an area that would be private, we would need a warrant for that, minus any, obviously, life or death situations, and there's a few instances where that applies, but not any officer could just grab it and put it up. They would have to be licensed to do that and operate it.
Okay.
Well, I'm all for it, but I just like to, I think people have concerns about how it's gonna be used, if there's any guidelines or restrictions on it and how it is. And the first time I saw the fire department one, I was wondering what the heck it was and why is it going over the tennis courts and that type of thing. I didn't know. So once we start using it, I think we're gonna get more questions, so it'd be nice to have a discussion sometime, what the procedures dictate and
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
limitations of it. And then are there maintenance agreements with these? Is there an ongoing expense with this?
There is not really any ongoing expense. They do have a very good warranty, and this company that we're looking to purchase them from is out of Plymouth, and one of the owners lives in Shakopee, and we talked to, I think, 9 different agencies, and there's a list of all the drone programs within the state of Minnesota, and all but one agency has this company. We've talked to the owner, and he said, yeah, if you have a problem, we're right here. We stock everything. We'll fix it right away. So they've been super easy to deal with and super accommodating to us, and have assured us that anything that happens, they're gonna take care of us.
Why, excuse me, why 2, Tim? I mean, if we have one at the fire department, a kid goes missing in a cornfield, whatever.
Yep.
I mean, how many do we need at $12,000 a piece? I mean,
Yep. Totally understand that. Part of what we've realized is that there's things that civilians can see, and there's things that only law enforcement should see when we're doing things. So there are things that the fire department can do to support a criminal investigation, and there are things that non-sworn people shouldn't ever see, because that information it's not public information.
Understood. No, that's
So does that answer your question?
absolutely does, yeah, it
And-
makes total sense.
And some of the things that, the 2 is, again, along the same lines, is we can keep one up, and if we need to keep eyes on, we can swap them out and do that, so.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the drones?
I would just like sometime in the future a discussion about how the policy and how they're being used and what's gonna have the guidelines, so we don't have anyone going rogue and using them.
Yes, absolutely. We have, like I said, we have the policy drafted, and I wasn't going to present that until we had approval to purchase them first, so we can share that tomorrow if you'd want to see that, so.
Yeah, the first question I'm sure I'm gonna get is, what's gonna stop someone looking in my backyard?
Yep.
And what are the conditions?
And we are required statutorily to report every use to the state, and that is made available to the public at the end of the year, every year, so.
Thank you.
You guys all done?
Okay, any other questions on the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve it minus, the E line.
Okay, so we have a motion by Rick to approve the consent agenda, removing letter E from consent agenda.
I'll second.
I got a second by Maggie Bass. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
Are we just having E go to be 10H then, moving that to the end?
What's that?
Is that just becoming 10H then, for anyone following along, of when we're gonna discuss that next?
Or are we just dropping it?
We're not.
I would say it shouldn't just be
No,
dropped, but it should
no.
certainly be discussed. Like what's gonna happen with it since it's
Yeah,
on there.
we can move it to that general business.
Okay.
Make that part of my motion.
Okay. Next on the agenda is public is invited to be heard on matters not on the agenda. And Brian, I think I got you.
I'm the only one?
Well, no, there's a Brad Wagner, but I don't know, Brad, are you wanting to speak on the road?
Yes.
Okay, okay, I'll put you on the other sheet then. All right.
Hi, Brian Paulson, 206 4th Street Southwest. I was actually going to talk about the drone, but I'm just going to, off the cuff, kind of switch here. So, because that was already approved, it looks like. But I do have some kind of professional uses for this file storage that you guys were discussing. I just want to note that when they scan in these files, especially if you look at the documents that the city has on the website for the old files, the text is very poor. So when you scan in those, it uses OCR, optical character recognition, and they're really bad at, especially like zeros and ones and I's, L's. It mixes those all up. So then you think you have all the data scanned in and the images are there, but then when you actually search for it, you search for a name or something, and it'll say that it's not there because the I's are L's, or it's really poor at actually converting that stuff. But I even had that when I was looking at, for the police station, I was looking at fire station documents, and I was using, I don't know if it's built into yours, or if I was using, I have Adobe Pro, but I would have to manually go through and read those, because it just, the find wasn't working very well. And then just to note that later in the presentation, in the meeting today, you'll be discussing a vCISIO, virtual Chief Information Security Officer, I think. And then this is like right up their alley as far as what controls you need to have for the data and the company that you're using and what controls that they have. So that's actually something that you might sign a contract for that and then hire this vCISIO, and they say that doesn't meet the standards. So a lot of companies will use NIST standards. So they have a baseline, and maybe that if Burnsville's using it, I assume it's probably okay. But just to kind of keep that in your head. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else would like to speak, address the council on items not on the agenda? Okay, if not, we'll go to the next one, which is the public hearing. Josh, do you want us to open the public hearing and then do the little presentation?
Either one works, I guess. Like,
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
You got a second by Rick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the public hearing is open on the 2026 Street Improvement Project. Chris, I think you want to lead the way, and then after that, we'll let the public have any comments.
Absolutely, thank you very much. So, at the council meeting 2 weeks ago, I provided a copy of the feasibility report for the 2026 street improvement project. After that meeting, a public hearing was called for, and that's what we're here for tonight. So, the public hearing is an opportunity for the public and residents on the project to review the project and let us know about any questions or comments they might have. So, the 2026 street improvement project is located on 10th Avenue Southeast from LeSueur County 29 on the south end, all the way up to 1st Street Southeast on the north end. There's also a small portion of 3rd Street Southeast from 10th Avenue to the west entrance of Horizon Drive. southeast. Shown on a map, this is just under a mile of roadway overall on 10th Avenue. The small portion of 3rd Street is included for some improvements that are proposed at the intersection. So 10th Avenue Southeast was constructed as part of developer projects from between about 2000 and 2007. So that's all when the original construction occurred. We are now at the period of looking at more rehabilitation or maintenance of this roadway. Now that's hit the 20 to 25 year lifespan of the pavement. So going through the proposed improvements on this project, we are looking at generally 2 different areas, and I'm just going to split them at 3rd Street Southeast. So on the north end from 3rd Street Southeast to Main Street, actually that's going to be 1st Street Southeast, we are proposing a mini roundabout to be constructed at the 3rd Street Southeast intersection. This includes full replacement of the pavement in that intersection area with the installation of curb and gutter medians and a center island. This will be similar to the 2 roundabouts on Main Street in the downtown area, along with the 2 mini roundabouts that are on Columbus Avenue on the north side. 10th Avenue Southeast, north of the intersection of 3rd Street, we are looking at mostly just a mill and overlay type of improvement. So milling the edges, so just removing the edges, milling them down, and then placing a bituminous overlay over the entire portion of roadway. North of 3rd Street, we're also looking at essentially leaving the existing configuration. So besides replacing the pavement, it'd be remarked and put back to its existing condition, which is a northbound drive lane, a southbound drive lane, and then a center turn lane. 3rd Street Southeast is proposed to be milled and overlaid from the intersection at 10th Avenue to the just west of the west axis of Horizon Drive Southeast. And this is just pavement condition that's similar to 10th Avenue, similar type of construction. So we've included that in the project. And then also the replacement of the trail surfacing on the west side of 10th Avenue Southeast. Though not noted here, we are also looking at replacement of the lighting in this area. So that'd be completed by the utility. So showing this on a map, again, that's just the north portion of the project. The mini roundabout proposed for construction at 3rd Street, along with the 3 lanes north of that area all the way up to 1st Street. This is kind of the more commercial, little denser residential area as well. This improvement is proposed without any alternate options. So my next area that I want to discuss is going to be south of this area, which we are looking at different options. So regardless of which of these 3 options I talk about next, this is the proposed improvement from 3rd Street southeast towards the north. So moving on, the second portion of the project I'd like to talk about is the southern portion of the project. This is from CSA 29 all the way up to 3rd Street southeast. There are 3 options being considered. All 3 include a mill and overlay of the pavement. So more or less the same pavement improvement is proposed for all 3 of them. The differences between them is how they are finished. So with option 1 is to be restoring essentially to the existing condition, which is 3 lanes. Option 2, which is to replace a portion of the center median with a landscape median. And then option 3, which is to reconfigure the roadway to a 2-lane configuration plus parking on either side. Common to all 3 options would be the replacement of trail surfacing on the west side of the roadway, and also the installation of enhanced crosswalks at 5th Street Southeast, 9th Street Southeast, and 12th Street Southeast. And that'd be the installation of an RRFB, which is the flashing beacon, and also new crosswalk striping. So moving into option 1 in a typical section view. So this would be maintaining the center turn lane, and then also the drive lanes on either side, and then replacing the pavement on the west side of the roadway. And this would go from the south side at CSA 29, which is also known as 280th Street, all the way up to 3rd Street. This is essentially going to be putting it back to where it is existing, so not much of a change, besides the crosswalk improvements that are proposed at 5th Street, 9th Street, and 12th Street Southeast. So this is kind of just the leave it as it is option. Moving forward, we are also presenting option 2, which is the installation of a partial landscaped median through the center of the roadway. This would be doing the edge mill and overlay, edge milling on each side of the road, overlaying the drive lanes, and then in the center it'd be removing the pavement and installing a curb and gutter, which would be used for the median, and in the center of that median having a mulched or vegetated area that trees could later be planted in. So I did provide a picture of a similar type of setup. This is actually located in Mankato. This is a center median with trees, shrubs, and a mulched area down the middle, just to kind of give an idea of what is being considered with this option. There are other options with more elevated center medians with more of a structural wall or something like that that would be used to retain soils and then be vegetated down the middle. But this is kind of an option with an RFP actually shown in this picture too, for something that would be similar to what we're looking at with option 2. Moving into this, figures on here look pretty similar to the first one, the exception being the blue areas down the middle. Those would be areas that are proposed for a center median. These are generally the areas of 10th Avenue Southeast that are not used for traffic. So these are areas that are currently just diagonally hatched, and they're kind of just pavement that's not used by vehicles. Moving through there, we'd be looking at installation of these medians in a little more extended form as you get up to the roundabout. The reason why we're looking at this option for the medians is that I believe that'll help slow traffic down, having narrower lanes. So instead of having a 44-foot roadway with a drive lane either side and a 14-foot open pavement down the middle, the landscape median or the median as a whole would just kind of narrow up the area. The landscaping is more of an enhancement to the area visually, although having trees or some taller vegetation might also assist with slowing traffic. The center median would also provide a refuge for pedestrians as they cross the roadway. So instead of crossing a 44-foot road, they cross one lane at a time with the center area for refuge when making the crossing there. So it's like crossing two 14-foot roads at a time with a center area for that refuge. So it would be an elevated median, so it would not be traversable until you get close to the roundabout that's proposed at 3rd Street. At that roundabout, the center medians would have to be traversable, so those would be paved with any of the options, but those would be mountable while the rest of this area and the blue areas would not. Third option that's being reviewed is the reconfiguration of the roadway from a 3-lane to a two driving lane plus shoulders or parking lanes on either side. So 2 traffic lanes and then parking on each side of the roadway. With the 44-foot roadway, you'd have a 12-foot driving lane each side and a 10-foot parking area. So this would be a change from where it is now. There's no parking allowed on 10th Avenue Southeast. So this would introduce that new element by changing the lane configuration. As you move into the figures on here, one change on this from the first 2 options is that going to a 2-lane configuration in the parking lanes would allow the installation of curb bump outs at each of the crosswalks. So we are proposing to do curb bump outs at 9th Street and 12th Street Southeast. These would narrow the roadway from 44 feet to probably about 32 feet is what we'd likely look at. This would improve visibility for both vehicles and pedestrians on the roadway, and also help to slow traffic down, along with the change to a 2-lane configuration without having as much free space, I guess, to work with out there. The hope is that this would help slow traffic down as well. The bump outs would require some reconfiguration of storm sewer. just to kind of move catch basins into the new curb line locations, but otherwise would leave most of that in place. And then again, with the other options, replacement of the trail surfacing on the west side of the road. We're also showing the curb bump outs at 5th Street southeast here, so I didn't mention that one before. As it comes into the intersection at 3rd Street southeast, the 2-lane configuration would start to split off on the south side of that roundabout and then change into a 3-lane configuration at the roundabout, which is where it would carry from that point further north. So 3 options have been presented. Option 1 being the 3-lane configuration. Project cost is just under $1.2 million. The project cost includes the construction cost, 10% contingency, and 20% project related, which is all the engineering, testing, and just kind of associated costs with doing a project. Option 2, which is the 3-lane with median, $1.482 million. It's about $280,000 more, which would go towards installation of the landscape median. This is just preparation of the landscape median. This does not include any planting. So using state aid funding, you only can use a small percentage of the project cost to go towards landscape, and that would essentially just pay for the mulch and then some amount of preparation. So there would still be future costs for any kind of plantings on top of that. Option 3, which is the 2-lane with bump outs, about $1.26 million. Most of that's about $65,000 increase in costs just due to the installation of the curb bump outs. That's the biggest change from option 1 as far as costs go. So the curb bump outs and then just extra sidewalk and other things that would be associated with that and some storm sewer. As far as project funding, that would come from a assortment of sources. General levy, which is just general city property taxes and just kind of your general fund. User fees, sewer utility fund, water utility fund, stormwater utility fund, not really applicable to this project because with the exception of some storm sewer potentially with option 3, we are not planning any improvements to the sanitary sewer or water or storm sewer systems. There would also be assessments to benefiting properties, which I'll get into a little bit more in the next couple of slides. Usage of municipal state aid system funding. 10th Avenue Southeast is on your MSA route system. So you are able to use municipal state aid funding, which is largely coming from the gas tax that the city does receive funding for on an annual basis. And then there's also an LRIP funding application, which was just submitted out last week. So results of that funding application won't be known until likely April next year. So this project does include following the public improvement process with Minnesota Statute 429. Similar to other street improvement projects that have been completed by the city, we are proposing to fund a small portion of the project using assessments to the benefiting properties. This is a mechanism that is afforded to the city and for public improvements, and largely is just to offset the benefit that is received by these properties that are on the project. There is a 20% rule for bonding, so however much 20% of the bonded cost of the project is required to come through assessments if you do follow that process with assessments. As far as the methodology for determining the assessments, they're basically what the city has used is a fixed base rate method. So this is where we're establishing a rate at the feasibility stage of the project versus bidding the project out, figuring out the total cost is, and just apportioning a percentage of it to each of the property owners. This is especially beneficial on smaller projects like this one where you may not benefit from the large scale projects that you have done in the past. Still $1 million projects, so it's not a small project necessarily, but comparatively to the $4 million projects maybe that have been completed in the past. So the rates that I'll be reviewing a little bit later here, kind of the top end, they will not be exceeded that by any amount, but they could come down potentially. It's also determined on a a unit method, so we look at properties, residential properties specifically as being a unit of one, with commercial properties being treated a little bit differently by a per foot type of basis. With the residential single-family assessment policy, we look at how the properties abut the project. On a project like this one, there aren't any residential properties that directly front 10th Avenue Southeast. There are a handful that have corner properties where maybe one side of the property is on 10th Avenue Southeast and may receive an assessment of half a unit because of that. So on a corner property, we look at each side, and each side is treated as a half a unit. Most of the residential properties that are on 10th Avenue Southeast have rear frontages or are rear facing on 10th Avenue Southeast. When the rear portion of a property is on the project, it is not assessed per policy. So it's only if the side or front of the property is on the improvement. So the typical one unit isn't going to apply to many or really any residential properties, although there will be some half units. And as noted here, number of three-sided properties are only assessed on two sides. So that is kind of unusual for this project because there aren't really any direct access points for the residential properties in this project. Commercial, industrial, and institutional properties are treated by a per foot cost. So what we would do is use the rate that's determined for a residential unit divided by 75 and determine that to be a cost per foot. And then a 1.3 multiplier is used on that. So basically a 30% increase on that rate is used to determine a per foot cost for commercial, industrial, and institutional properties. So on this project specifically, this would apply to Prague Village and Hy-Vee, located on the north side. And these would be, those are also corner properties, so credit of 37.5 feet, which is basically similar to that half unit. Credit is also provided for those commercial properties. And then another way that some properties may be assessed is based on the townhome apartment building type of assessment, which is where we look at where a townhome property or apartment building accesses a roadway or public roadway. So if, for instance, a group of townhomes has a private road, that private road exits onto 10th Avenue Southeast, each of the townhomes inside could be assessed for half a unit in this case, a mill and overlay improvement. If their access comes off a different road other than 10th Avenue Southeast, or a road that's not being proposed for improvement in our project, then they would not be assessed under this project. Proposed assessment rates for this project. There are really just two. So mill and overlay, $2,550 per property, and that is on an each basis. So those are for residential properties, and then for mill and overlay for commercial institutional properties, the rate is $44.20. Again, that's using the mill and over the residential rate divided by 75, and then adding that 30% multiplier on top of that. Under this policy, $180,000 of assessment is potential with this project. I will note that the bulk of that assessment is based on city properties that are on the project. So we do include them in the assessment roll, although in most cases, well, in nearly all cases, those don't actually follow through with the assessment. So those are used mostly for determination of our 20% bonding requirement. So with that said, about $58,000 of non-city properties are proposed for assessment. And one more caveat to that might just be that some of these parcels may have to be looked at as far as are they going to receive benefit. There are some properties on here under the non-city properties that are not buildable, so they'd be likely to have a deferred assessment or not assessed at all. So with that said, the assessment process that we would follow. So tonight's kind of the beginning here at the public hearing. The project is ordered and follows through to construction. Assessment hearing would be completed in the fall of 2026. Typically in September of every year, I bring in the final assessment roll, and then the hearing is called for in October. And at that point, the assessment hearing is held, and assuming everything moves forward, assessments would be payable within 30 days without interest. And if those assessments are not paid, they would be levied to LeSueur County and payable with property taxes. Normally it's 15 years. I did put in here 10 to 15 years with this being a smaller project. On a screen utility project, you might have a $15,000 assessment. On a project like this, it's 25, 50 is the most that a residential property would have, and I think most are actually half of that because they're half units. So with the exception of a couple of commercial properties, the assessments are quite a bit lower, so a smaller 10-year period of time might be warranted in this case. The interest rate would be to be determined, and there are options for deferred assessments, which would be referred to more in the assessment hearing. Excuse me. So the schedule we have for you here. So the feasibility report was presented 2 weeks ago. Tonight being the public hearing. I do have in your packet here after the public hearing consideration of a resolution to authorize preparation of plans and specifications. Now I do note that I provided 3 options for improvements with you here tonight. If you do authorize preparation of plans and specifications, and you did not make a choice between those 3 options tonight, it would just be something we need to determine before we move into a design period. So a lot of times I'd have the resolution, then our proposal for actually starting the design. I don't have that proposal until I know which option is pursued. So our design services look quite a bit different between options 1, 2, and 3, especially with option 2 versus the other 2 options. With our schedule, we do have a presentation of final plans and specifications at the April 6th meeting in next year. Now, again, one more thing I'll add to that. This is made with the assumption that we're following a just regular state aid process for submittals. If you do receive funding from the Local Road Improvement Program grant, that may affect that schedule if we do use that funding towards the mini roundabout, which is what's proposed. If that mini roundabout does fall through and uses the Local Road Improvement Program funding, we would have to complete a traffic study, which would take about 2 months to complete. So that traffic study had to be finished and approved prior to letting the project, so that could shift some of these dates for construction back a little bit. So
Can you do that in the winter?
could be completed in the winter, yeah. Yeah. So the only reason we don't have it in here is if you don't receive the LRIP funding, you'd be using local funding towards the 3rd Street improvements, which would not require that traffic study. But if you use state aid funding, then it would require the traffic study. Under the schedule, we do have opening bids in May, about 1 month after presentation, May 8th, 2026, with award of the project on May 18th. We usually have a neighborhood meeting within a couple weeks of award of the project, once we know who the contractor is going to be on the project, with construction taking about 2 months with an open period between June and September to complete the work. If this schedule shifted back to allow that completion of that report, it would still be under a very similar tail end of the schedule. We would be starting in June and be more like a late July to maybe at the worst beginning of October type of schedule. With the project, we would then hold the assessment hearing and adopt the assessments in October of next year, with assessments levied to the county the following month. So now I'm at the questions portion of my presentation here.
Thank you for bringing that picture of Mankato. I mean, I think it helps all of us visualize what that center median would look like, and that would be we don't have to choose tonight, but that would be the option that I would go with.
And is that option 2?
The option 2.
Just
And I like that too. It would really slow the traffic down there.
slow the traffic. I like I know because I live in that area that a lot of dog walkers, a lot of kids cross that on their way to the park. to Memorial Park from there, so I like the fact that it has that little respite, that if they can't make the entire length, they can stop in the middle there. But that would be my option that I would choose.
Were you looking for I mean, it sounded like we don't have a proposal because we don't have a choice yet. And so at some point, whenever the council decides to choose, like that'll be when we move forward. So to your point, Sean, we certainly can make a choice tonight. And if we want to continue kind of moving this project forward.
Well, I got a second, it sounds like, so I'll make a motion that we approve option 2
I think we
tonight.
need to, point of
Public.
order, finish the public hearing.
Oh,
hearing.
okay.
Correct.
And have a discussion regarding the public hearing and details.
Yeah, we're still just at the question phase.
Okay.
Any other questions? I just have a question for Matt. Matt, you know, with the area where obviously the cars have gone into the fencing and that stuff, does an option in favor to help, you know, if you went to the 4-lane with the parking lane, would that maybe?
So we did have that issue for many years in a row, probably about 10 years ago. We have not had any issues since then, after we made some corrections around that curve signage. We did slow the speeds down around the curve. So that has corrected that issue. Yes, I do think 2 of the options would even enhance that by slowing traffic down, and that would be option 2 or 3. Option 1 of, like I said 2 weeks ago, of putting the street back to the way it is and putting a couple enhanced crossings, I don't think does enough. I'll give you my short spiel that I gave 2 weeks ago, since we have some new people here, but we go into these projects, me and Chris and staff, of 1, how do we improve these streets from pedestrian crossing and also vehicle traffic. We do have a major concern with 10th Avenue. We've heard over the years of pedestrian crossing and speeds. Those are the 2 biggest issues of 10th Avenue, and we have made some corrections. And when we do a street project like this is the time to do a larger correction. So, like I stated, option 1 is, in my mind, is not really an option, to be honest with you. I just don't think it does nearly enough to correct all the concerns we've had over the last 15 to 20 years of this street. I'll state it again, option 2 with medians is a major concern for the public works. It's a 2-lane, you're turning it into a 2-lane road, where when we do any kind of maintenance on that street, you are eliminating one lane of traffic. So you are eliminating pretty much a southbound lane for hours at end, or a northbound lane at hours at end. 10th Avenue is a main artery for our sanitary sewer that has to be jetted once every 4 years, or periodically whenever we have concerns. It also is a major stormwater collector with all the ponds around there, so we are doing general maintenance out there more often than a residential street, you know, a housing street, 3rd Street, something like that. We are out there quite a bit doing maintenance. So with that said, yeah, there are some major concerns on the public works side of closing streets down, doing maintenance on that street safely. Signage, we will have to buy more signage for the 10th Avenue when you completely close the street off and put detour signs up. And then the cost, there's continuous cost on medians. Wood chipping, about every 2 years, we wood chip everything in town. So we have, you know, city buildings, Main Street. Main Street gets done yearly. You're looking at 10th Avenue, you're looking at about $6,000 just in wood chips every 2 years. That's just wood chips. That's not plants, that's nothing. Like we said in this plan, there is no plants involved in this plan. So you can go very elaborate and put trees and shrubs, and you're talking $100,000, $200,000 in shrubs and plants. That's a perfect example, Main Street. If you go that elaborate, you're talking some major expenses on plants. And that the installing the plants is the easy part. It's maintaining those plants now. Any tree we plant now, we plant about 40 trees a year. So if you're talking about trees, that's 3 years of maintenance that tree takes to keep the root base solid, root base, where you don't have to do any maintenance to it. So I'm just putting all the information out there that medians are a massive undertaking for maintenance. I've talked to many cities that do have medians. they have all told me that if you have a 4-lane median, 2 lanes going one way, 2 lanes going the other way, they don't have any concerns taking care of medians because you can actually eliminate 1 lane of traffic and still not eliminate complete southbound, northbound lanes. But they all said the exactly same thing. I've repeated over and over that they are an absolute nightmare when it comes to single lane medians. Option 3, I will tell you, is my professional opinion is the best option, and also Public Works. One, because it gets the bump outs, you get the traffic, or you get the pedestrians crossing an additional 5 feet on each side, so the vehicles can see that pedestrian crossing. And it also slows traffic down when you put two lanes next to each other. It will slow traffic down because you don't have that large median we have right now, and people can make the curve and they just cut over the curve like it's nothing. Well, you can't do that when you have traffic running alongside each other. Like I said, and again, an option one I don't think is an option. I have 2 younger kids. I shouldn't even say young. Now that I'm getting old, I guess. I got a 14-year-old and a 11-year-old. Neither of them are allowed to cross 10th Avenue by themselves. It's not safe the way it is, so that's why I tell you option 1 I don't think is an option. I also don't believe the comment that was made. I don't think it's a great option to tell a kid to cross the street and just stop in the middle of the road. I don't think that's a great option either. I think if you start crossing a street, you should be crossing all the way. So that's why I like the fact that you're pushing out, with a bump out, you're pushing the pedestrians out 5 to 6 feet on each side, so then you have 12 feet roughly less to cross that street. So I told you I'm going to give you the short version. I guess I went a little longer than I did. Obviously, I'm pretty passionate when it comes to these projects. I mean, I think any director would be. But yeah, we spent a lot of time looking at what we believe is the best option, and that's my professional opinion is option 3. Hopefully I answered your question, Chuck, in about a 10-minute.
Yeah.
When you wanted a 30-second comment back, sorry.
Oh, you're still talking?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't pay overtime.
Yeah. Question also, Tim, I mean, there's a speed limit of 35, on both the north and south of Main Street. Is that something that could ever be changed?
It could with a study. I know that Ken could probably speak more to the speed limit change.
Yeah, generally speaking, they're gonna, we have to follow MnDOT, guidelines for setting a local road speed limit, and you're gonna set it to the 85th percentile. Right now, with the way the road is, 85th percentile is actually closer to 40 miles per hour, which indicates a speeding problem. So to Matt's point, that I would concur with that option 1 is really not an option because of that, and other reasons, but, I think it'd be very difficult to see that speed drop. That could happen after we make improvements and we do a study to kind of follow up. Depending on the roadway width and design that we go with, I guess we could see, but it would be determined, after we have the improvements done and can actually determine what that 85th percentile of cars are actually traveling to what we could set it to.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just the public.
Yeah, no, I was gonna. No, just anywhere. Chris, I guess, right now, I guess I'm gonna open it for public comments. Right now, I got just one person who signed in, and that's Brad Wagner. What is it, 1009 3rd Street Southeast? Okay.
So I'm right on the corner of this proposed roundabout. What is in the works to protect my property?
Can you please speak into the microphone so we can hear you?
What is in the proposal to protect my property, first of all?
That roundabout that would be put in 10th Avenue and 3rd Street. It really does fit in the exact street that it is right now. It's not really getting any wider. That roundabout would be, just like we've said, the one you see right on Main Street. So yes, we might adjust some curb, but for the most part, that curb line is staying exactly where it's at. So it's not getting bigger, where it'd be encroaching into more of the road right away. What was that? I'm sorry.
But you're moving the walking path.
The walking path is still on the west side, but we'll make some adjustments. We'll move it the crossing a little farther down, south/north, just for the crossing parts. But for the most part, the walking path will be put pretty close to where it's at.
Okay, and then everybody's concerned about speed. I mean, I get it. If you really wanna control that street, then you'd really have to put a roundabout in every intersection. I mean, this median stuff, all you hear dollar signs, dollar signs, dollar signs and assessments. And I don't think anybody wants that. Has anybody even thought about making it a no truck road?
That's not an option on a state aid route.
Yeah, it's a state aid road and it is designed a truck route. So how it is designed a state aid road, it has to be a truck route.
Okay, but what purpose are there for any trucks? There's nothing past Hy-Vee. It is all residential all the way down.
Yeah, by statute, they cannot, if the roads are receiving funding from the MSA system, they cannot not allow trucks. So there are more residential streets in town that are truck routes because of that reason.
Okay, cause all the trucks that need to get anywhere down by me can come right off of 19, whether it's to the Legion or whatever. That's why I was asking. The other thing is when we do all this milling and overlay, are we gonna fix all the manhole covers?
Yeah, so all the castings, gate bells, all get raised to the new surface level.
Okay, good. What else is on my agenda? So then with that, you said moving the walking path to bend around my corner. So obviously, we're in association, we got sprinkler lines, we got all kinds of stuff running in there. You got all the boxes and all the electrical cable, all that stuff on that corner, plus a fire hydrant. Is any of that moving?
Yeah, I can just comment maybe up here, so people can hear me a little better maybe. Ken, could you maybe pull up that image that shows the mini roundabout?
Will that work?
One for the north side? I think there's one a little more zoomed in, maybe,
It was up near the very beginning.
maybe right at the front page, actually. Yeah, that's good there. So, just to kind of explain this mini roundabout, because I kind of glossed over it a little bit. So, the mini roundabout that's proposed at the intersection of Third Street and 10th Avenue Southeast would be retaining the existing curb. So the curb radii that go around each of the four corners would be left in place. The only curb that'd be removed would be removal of the existing crosswalks. So on a standard installation, like it is now, the crosswalks are pretty close to the corners or around the round portion of the intersections. With a roundabout, those get moved about 20 feet back. So that allows room for one vehicle to queue, waiting to enter the roundabout, and then the crosswalk is behind that front vehicle. So the crosswalks get moved about 20 feet back from where they are today. When that is done, the sidewalks get rerouted with a little bit of a curve shown there. This is to improve the crosswalk for pedestrians. All the work that is being proposed here is within right-of-way, so we are not planning to do any work outside of right-of-way on this project. So even with the reconfiguration, it's still on essentially city property. If there is anything that's in the right-of-way, whether it's irrigation systems or other privately owned things like pet containment systems, if they are encountered in the project, we try to work around them, but we don't restore them if they get damaged. So they do not belong in the public right of way. If we do run into them, we notify the property owners, or in this case, an HOA likely, that they would need to be repaired afterward, but that would not be completed by the city project. As far as anything related to other utilities, if we have a relocation, we work with those private utilities. But as far as I know, we're working around the large utility boxes that are the Prague utilities at the northwest corner there. We're working around those for the electrical side, and I'm not aware of anything else that's really in the way. So if we have a hydrant needs to be moved or extended, we can do that with the project. But just like any other street project, we accommodate and move if we have to.
All right, and then lastly on this, since it does directly affect and cars are gonna be coming around, is there anything in the works for a privacy fence for me? Or any of us there? Cause it's headlights all night long that are coming around.
we have not had that discussion, no.
Okay. Please consider it though.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on the street improvement project? Okay, I guess I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
I got a second by Rick Seiler. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Passes 5-0. So now we have to look at the resolution. And
Yeah, so the resolution in your packet would be to, basically to order the project at this point. I did note that, you know, we've provided 3 options. I don't have a contract in front of you to, you know, necessarily pursue one of those 3 options. I think that's maybe one of the items we need to kind of go through. Options 1 and 3 are quite a bit different than option 2 as far as the engineering involved, so. The resolution in front of you here tonight will be just to order the project. And if you wanted to make a decision on which option you pursue, you can do that after the resolution. You can do it before, that's your choice. We wouldn't be starting any of that work until our contract goes through for approval.
Can I just get clarification on the titling of this order?
Yes, thank you, Bruce.
I'm sorry, okay.
This, our hearing was on a 2026 street improvement, and the resolution is titled 2025.
Okay, our admin likely, we don't necessarily produce everything from scratch. It's probably a copy and paste from last year's project, so it is a 2026 street improvement project.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
okay, any other comments, questions? I know, my opinion is I think we should, at a later date, maybe the first meeting in January or something, decide which option to go through. You know, kind of give us a little bit more time to discuss. I know we have a lot of things on the calendar today that we want to try to get through. But I think if we can kind of put that on the agenda on the first one in January, then we, you know, our timeline still should be able to be met. And
Yeah, so and what I'll provide is just I'm assuming option 1 is not really an option. So they'd likely bring a proposal for both option 2 and option 3. It is worth noting there could be somewhere in between option 1 and option 2. So if it's just to improve pedestrian crossings, you can do islands at just the intersections. So as you kind of think about that, just understand that we're presenting basically the maximum option with option 2 as far as what is the most you can put an island in. Understand that you could find somewhere in between. So that picture I provided to you for a location in Mankato, that intersection goes, I think, about 200 feet one direction, then goes back to a 3-lane configuration with a center turn lane. So it's not a mile of road, or in this case, we'd be talking about maybe, I think the longest one maybe like 800 feet or something in that range. So just as you think about that consideration, there could be somewhere in between for at least option 1.5 or whatever you might want to call it. So
okay.
So just something to think about.
Just to clarify my mind, if you go down to option 2, I think, or even 3, is there parking allowed on the street?
Option 1 or 2 would not have any parking allowance. Option 3 would.
3 does allow, there's
Correct.
2 lanes, and you could allow a lane for parking.
Yes.
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 But number 2 there would be no parking.
Correct, yep.
And what is the traffic count on this?
I want to say the latest count is around 3,400 vehicles, somewhere in that range, 3,500 vehicles. The count previous to that was over 4,000. That was a 2020 or 2021 count. And a lot of our COVID counts are kind of off, so those are kind of hard to go by. But assume about 3,500 to 4,000 vehicles per day would be about what I'd estimate for this area.
Of note right now, Bruce, we don't allow parking on 10th Avenue Southeast right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's just because of, there's just no room for it because the drive lanes are against the curb.
What do we foresee parking on that street anyways? The one side is a drainage ditch essentially. There's nothing over there for that people would want to park for. It's not like Main Street.
Correct, yeah.
And if they're going to a holiday celebration or something, I'm assuming they're gonna park in the front. They're gonna go off of 3rd Street or 9th Street and park at the house.
I wouldn't expect it to get a lot of on-street parking. It'd probably just be people holding events, garage sales, those kinds of things, to be honest. It's not gonna be probably getting regular amount of people.
But even a garage sale, most of those houses face this in the
absolutely.
back. They'd have
Yeah.
to still walk all the way around.
Yes. Yeah, Sean, yeah, say, unlike the north half with Seventh, where there's houses that front it, you are right in that there's no houses that
Right.
front it.
Yeah, I
So
just don't
the-
see anybody
There's
using
probably
it.
not a high demand for parking per se.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd say the parking would probably, I mean, even though there's a trail on one side and a sidewalk on the other, it might be cyclists or something else using that, but probably not a lot of parking.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2512-1501 with the correction of the title from 2025 Street and Utility Improvement Project, ordering improvement and preparation of plans, to 2026 Street and Utility Improvement Project, ordering improvement and preparations of plans.
With the idea of this, would we then be also bringing back the discussion of which option at the next meeting, Maggie?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
yeah, you got a motion by Maggie Bass, seconded by Bruce Wolf. Any other comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Thanks, Chris.
The next item is mine here too.
Well, you're gonna just say everything is hunky-dory, right?
That's, yeah, so I guess, I do my project updates.
Do we have to
in
make a
there.
motion to, end the, public hearing?
We already
We did that.
We did? Oh,
Yeah.
Cool.
I do
My
my
mind's
project
not here.
updates letter with you in the packet today. The last one I'll mention there is in your general business, I do have my proposal for municipal state aid services. So that's just certification and just general services that are needed for your maintenance of your MSA system. So I wasn't planning to stick around for the end of the meeting here. So if there are questions for me, please let me know. Otherwise, it's the same amount and same services we've offered for the last 3 years, I think, at this point. So, but,
Okay,
that's the only thing I'll kind of add on as far as it's in that update, unless there's questions, but otherwise, see you another time.
all right,
All right, thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah, right. Happy
Item number 7, and there's no ordinances for introduction. 8, there's no ordinances for adoption. So we're at number 9, resolutions. First one is adopting the 2026 city budget.
Yes, enclosed for your review is the city's proposed 2026 total budget, totaling $27,649,894 for across all departments. You guys have seen all of these before. This budget includes summaries of the general fund, the EDA, the enterprise fund, special revenues, capital projects, and the debt service funds. Of note, we had our truth and taxation here at our last meeting on December 1st. And following that, I guess staff does recommend approval of the 2026 total budget via resolution 2512-1502.
Any comments, questions?
I have some question.
Go ahead.
What is the percent that this is, larger than last year's?
Percent, the total levy, I'm assuming you're talking?
Yes, yes.
Yes, so the levy will be coming up here.
No, the city budget is really what I want.
Oh,
the
the
levy, the
percent of
city
the budget
budget,
over
yeah.
last year's?
Yes.
You mean the total budget?
The total budget, yes, that's what we're
27
discussing.
million is you talking about?
Yep.
Right, the 27 million. What was it last year?
Yep, give me 2 seconds here.
Or just the percentage is what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Write some numbers real quick. It's lower. Last year, we approved a budget of $31,550,234. So I can do that math for you here real quick.
It's on,
Oh,
packet page 3 of 107 of the budget packet item, so, let's see.
107, you said?
Yep, page 3 of 107. Total amount.
Page 3 of 107.
In section 3?
of the actual budget packet, page 3 and 4 of the 107-page packet.
Gotcha.
So the difference. Oh, page 54, I guess, on the PDF.
No.
I'm just in the actual budget packet link. So for
So
the
it's-
general fund, it's 4.8%.
Okay. Decline.
So total budget had a decline of about 7.5%.
Okay.
But general fund,
Yeah, that's total budget.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Okay, any other questions? Any other
I make a
questions?
motion to approve resolution 25-12-15-02, City of New Prague resolution adopting the city budget for 2026.
I'll second that. So I got a motion by Bruce Wolf and second by Chuck Nicolai to adopt the resolution number 25-12-15-02, adopting the 2026 city budget. There's no other comments, or questions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
Sean, real quick, my keyboard put another 3 in on there. It's actually 12% decrease over last year.
In the city budget, the
In the
total
city, but yeah, so yeah, last year's of 31, about 31.5 million. We took off almost 4 million,
Yep.
which is about 12%.
I think I found that 4.2 million, I think does that sound right? 4.328?
From last year's?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just needed the percentage.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get people that ask, and I can say that we
Fair,
at least. It's,
About 12%.
okay.
okay. Next is the official fee schedule. If anyone have any questions on the fee schedule, I know the changes are highlighted in yellow. Anyone have any questions on any of the highlighted areas of the fee schedule?
Oh, I think we've seen those before.
What's that?
I think we've already seen them.
Yeah, I'm just,
And we did, tighten up some of the subsequent fees on like blighted properties and whatnot. I know we had discussed that, did we?
We had actually done a lot of those, in the 2025 fee schedule,
Okay,
so we're not proposing any new ones at this point.
okay, but we added teeth to it somehow though, right?
Yeah, we had been ratcheting up our, per property, per mowing, or per maintenance fee.
Okay,
okay, if there's no questions, I guess I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 25-12-15-03, the 2026 official fee schedule.
I'll second.
I got a second by Maggie Bass. If there's no other comments, questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Next, we have the property tax levy.
Yes, this property tax levy goes with the budget we just passed, as we've been discussing for the last few months. Total levy would be $5,603,735. And so I guess I would recommend that with resolution 25-12-15-04.
and the
That would be the 5.46%
5.46
over last year.
okay.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 25-12-15-04, approving the 2025 property tax levy payable in 2026.
Second.
Got a motion by Maggie Bass, second by Rick Seiler. Any other questions, comments at this time? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition?
Aye.
Okay, passes 4-1. Next is a resolution regarding moving our election location in 2026 from the fitness center to the new police station garage, is that correct?
That's correct. So for a number of years now, we've used the fitness center for elections and whatnot. Generally, working around them, there are fees that we kind of incur, cleaning fees and whatnot, to be able to use that facility, as well as a rental fee, if I remember right, Robin. So along those lines, as we will have space now in our new garage, I know talking to the chief, it's pretty easy for them to pull cars out on election days and whatnot, to be able to just kind of flow people right through the garage. It would then also allow the fitness and aquatic center to continue operating without having to be overwhelmed by voters on that day. So we are trying to think of ways of using city facilities that would be easier administratively to handle, and we thought this was one way of utilizing our new facility and allowing that facility hopefully to continue being open to the public.
Are there any concerns with parking, adequate parking?
I mean, you always have that concern. I believe our parking, both in the parking lots and on street, will be very similar to what is currently at the aquatic center right now. And so I guess I'm not foreseeing any super major parking issues at this point. It would all depend on the election year too. I know the one, but the one thing that I think we are going to see a drastic change in, at least we saw it even this year with the school voting, was the number of early and mail-in voting. So your on-day turnout isn't quite as heavy as it used to be in that situation. So I guess, yeah, we may have a little bit of note. I think Helena currently uses the fire station for their Helena Township voting, and that would be over on the fire station side, where this would be on the police side.
So this would involve all elections except for school elections that are just school?
Just school
nothing
elections,
else.
yeah. So
all other
yeah, and
elections.
any elections that the city was involved in would be held there, and until some future, if we ever changed it to a different location again.
When is the police station supposed to be done?
Estimated completion is in May right now. So I believe our first elections will be in August of next year, so a few months after that.
Any other questions?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2512-1505. The City of New Prague designating a combined polling place for all precincts for the primary election and general election in 2026 and future elections until further notice.
I'll second that. Any other questions? I got a motion by Maggie Bass, second by Chuck Nicolai, for Resolution 25-12-1505. If there's no other comments or questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. General business. First thing is approval of the 2026 to 2035 capital improvement plan.
That is correct. There are no changes kind of from what we've discussed throughout our budget process. So staff recommends approval of the 2026 through 2035 capital improvement plan.
Josh, I had just one quick question. I had
Yeah.
thought that when we heard the fire department's report, I might have misunderstood that, but was there a comment that the fire truck purchase was gonna be pushed back a year?
It was the conversations I've had with Chief Rinda are that it could be pushed back. Not necessarily that it will be, but that it could be as we look out over the next few years, where the truck is at right now. He believes that there certainly will be life on it if we want to push it back a couple of years to try to help balance that levy as we go forward. But I would say there's nothing that is going to require us moving it from 28 to 29 or whatnot that we certainly need to do now. And I would love to take another look at it next year and just make sure we don't jump that gun on it and push it back and then have to explain why we're pulling it back forward again.
So at this point in time, you want to keep it in the same year that it's on in the CIP?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, just keep that in your back pocket that we may be discussing it, moving it back.
Yeah, no, not literally in your back pocket. Any other questions? If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the 2026 through 2035 capital improvement plan.
I'll second.
I got a second by Maggie Bass. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Approval of the 2026 to 2035 visioning document.
Yes, along the same lines as the CIP, this has been the document that's kind of been shared going forward. And so I can certainly stand for any questions or any changes you may want to see at this point. But otherwise, I'd recommend approval of the 2026 through 2035 visioning document.
I had a comment regarding the city center section, which is, I think, just a page, I think the first page.
Yeah, you wanna see it? Where it says
And
it's
just,
90%.
I think we're just keeping the same wording from the original, and we're kind of working through it. But in the near future, I would encourage maybe some different wording to suggest a little more detail and for us to get a little more prioritized here, because to me, this is one of our higher priorities for next year is this. And it does, I don't really read that in this description. And really to get people to work together, the park board especially, and other people to figure out what, if we decide to develop this property, what, and we're gonna sell part of it, to make sure that next year we have on our plate that we're gonna sell part of it and get the further development planned. So if we're gonna have trees or park, or if the city wants to have trees located, develop the tree plan or whatever that is, and have that done early next year. So I just don't get that out of this wording here.
No, that's fair.
To create a little bit more sense of urgency and let the world know that, hey, this is a priority, we're doing this. You know, and our intention is to market the property and develop the water retention, whatever you described that thing, so.
Yep, I can certainly do along that lines. I know, just for your guys' note, I try to update these quarterly. If you go out onto the share drive, you'll see the 2025 out there, and it's got the quarterly notes for most of the items as we go through, so I will be doing an update here at the end of December. But yeah, I can look at kind of wording that a little bit differently.
That's my take on it. I don't know how everyone else feels on it, but I think as a council, I think it'd be good to have it in front of our face.
Yep.
That, hey, this is something that we need to do, get done.
Any other comments? Okay, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the 2026 to 2035 visioning document with maybe adjustments to the city center area to highlight the.
And I can certainly include that in like the update.
Future updates.
Yes,
or something like
as
that.
I do the updates, I can just update the language.
Okay, and the future updates on the city center.
Second.
I got a second by Rick. Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Compensation pay plan for 2026. I think didn't we already approve that in
Yeah, so
previous meetings?
you guys approved the compensation study that was done, and
Okay.
then that we kind of used to form the budget every single year. As we've kind of discussed, whether it was COLAs in the past then, or when we had studies at the end of the year, we formally approved the compensation pay plan for the coming year. This is the pay plan that was taken out of that study that the council approved here back in October. So there haven't been any changes to it. You will notice the police union matrix is in there, and that's more just as an FYI, as that is part of our union contract. And we'll be discussing that here in the coming year, so.
Okay. Anyone have any questions, comments?
I will make a motion to approve the 2026 compensation pay plan.
Second.
I got motion by Maggie Bass, second by Bruce Wolf. Any other questions, comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. 2026 golf course consultant agreement. I think basically the only changes there were, this is an annual contract that we do with, what's the name of his company? Golf Professional Enterprises LLC.
Correct, and yeah, this is the same contract that you all saw back in the middle of November, and is just being brought forward for formal approval.
And just changed his rate of pay to what was agreed on at the golf board and also agreed on by the council, or we're agreeing on it here now.
Yes, this would be agreeing on the formal
Right.
contract. Yeah, this is
The
the
golf
same.
board has approved this new compensation for this contract, but I think everything else is pretty much the same.
Correct.
So if there's any other questions or not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the 2026 golf course consultant agreement.
I'll second.
I got a second by Maggie Bass. If there's not any other further comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Municipal State Aid Road, is that that grant?
No, this is actually the proposal that Chris Knutson noted regarding our annual
Oh,
state aid route, basically paperwork and everything that he has to do every year. He is proposing services for 2026 that are not proposed to increase at all. They would be $7,100 for the routine services for 2026, same as we had in 2025. And we do not expect any non-routine, although if there is, that would be a $1,500 not to exceed, but we don't have anything proposed. We don't have any new roads that would bump us into designating any new state aid routes. So $7,100 is where we're gonna be. So no change, just looking to get that approved for the coming year.
So moved.
so I just got a question. So I know we only have what, one county road left in the city limits? that first-
Technically two with County Road 15 up basically in front of the wastewater treatment plant in Scott County, and then
Oh, okay.
County Road 60 there as it goes south of the New Prague Times office.
Yeah, okay. Do you know has there been any conversation on that road being refurbished and
We
given
have.
back to us?
I don't know if Matt wants to comment on that further.
Oh, it'd be nice to
Yeah,
put a trail on there.
or Josh even, we've had meetings with the county highway engineer, between Josh, myself, and Matt and Chris Knudsen. That may be a 2027 project.
So we need to beat on Dennis Teets when he comes here the next time, huh? Is that what you're saying? Okay, that was my only question, so. There was a motion by Rick, and I guess I'll second that. Is there any other comments on the proposed fees and the municipal state aid engineering services? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Now we're at this VSys school, cyber, whatever,
Something like that. And I
way
know-
above my pay grade.
I know that Brian used a fancy way to pronounce it, and I'm just gonna say the police department has been working with Minnesota Security Consortium kind of over the last year on its cybersecurity standards that the BCA put out, and I know we were kind of struggling to meet those. While CTS is an IT company, they aren't necessarily a cybersecurity company. And so Minnesota Security Consortium has actually been able to review the police department's practices and the needs, and then communicate those to CTS so that CTS is able to put those measures actually into place. So from a city perspective, as we were talking with a representative from MSC, we'll just say, he did recommend, he said there are many things that he could help the city also in place. I think generally it is a much higher fee than, say, $6,000 for 6 months of services. But what he would basically be able to do is kind of go through all of our security needs. I know there was a number of years ago, actually now that we did a security assessment with True North, I think was the name of them, who kind of said that this is where we were at with certain things, but didn't really then give us direction. Speaking to CTS, as I said, they're not really a cybersecurity firm. They gave us a bunch of templates for a bunch of policies that we could put into place, but that was really all they had. They didn't really have any expertise on the policies or recommendations on which order to go through. What Minnesota Security Consortium would do would help to put some policies into the correct policies that we probably need to put into place, and really take a look at our systems to give us recommendations then, and to be able to tell CTS, this is what they need to do to stay up to date. And I know, like I said, our police department and CTS were kind of running into a wall with the BCA, just as to how do we get compliant with what the BCA wants to do. And these guys were very, very helpful with them. And so it seems for a low cost of $6,000 over 6 months for them to kind of be able to do the same things for the city, seems like I guess a good trial price along those lines, and I would recommend moving forward with that. Of note, while we didn't initially work these into the budget, this would be able to fit into our IT services budget for the coming year, so.
So they've already worked with our police station.
They've worked with the police
This
department.
is talking about now using them for
Citywide.
Citywide.
Yeah,
Okay.
citywide, I know, like utility data, or, yeah, we have a lot of utility customer data, personal information that they would be able to help us make sure we're protecting it correctly. And I know Tim has probably worked much more intimately with, I think his name is Demetrius, than I have, so he'd be able to hopefully answer any questions kind of about that, so.
And just to be clear, then this is just in a consultant role, making recommendations, but they would not communicate directly with CTS to instruct them to do.
So yeah, they would come to us and say, we think you need these things, would you like us to talk to CTS about this? And then, yeah, they'd be working as a consultant through us.
Okay.
So would there be a report at the end of this, or what's the work product that is it just verbal thing, or?
Yeah,
is there
I would assume we get some kind of report. I guess, Tim, how detailed does that get with you guys?
With the police department, we have a lot of standards that come down federally, that then the state enforces locally for us. That has changed significantly in the last 5 years, with all the cybersecurity and the attacks that are happening, and what a lot of cities are seeing are the police department and the city have the same vulnerabilities. We're just required to have a stricter set of firewalls and protections and things like that. So in the course of this process with reviewing ours and updating our policies and procedures, I talked with Josh and Demetrius, and what they do is they go through and find best standard, and this is what we're doing, and this is what cities are doing, and this is why. To show you, here's your vulnerability, and this is how you can fix it, and this is how CTS can do that. So when CTS, when you ask them a question about, you know, cybersecurity and things from the federal level, they don't necessarily know the answer to that. They can implement things, but they don't know what that standard is. So essentially, this company will then guide us into what CTS's process needs to be for security through the city.
But to Bruce's point, did you get some kind of a written document saying this is what we're recommending, so that, you know?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we go through our whole policy, and with us, we have a set of standards that we have to meet from the BCA, so it's a checkbox, and did we do this, did we do this, did we do this? And it'll create the same thing for the city.
Mr. Mayor, may I, first,
Sure.
Brian Paulson, 206 4th Street Southwest. So they usually have controls, and like for me, it's like 110 controls. So they'll give you a document and say there's 110 controls to be, you know, NIST 800 171, whatever the standard that they want to use. They'll give you the controls. It's separate than vulnerabilities. Vulnerability scanning is like there's a bug with Windows Edge or something like that. So this is compliance. So they'd be giving you these controls, and then they would help with your like IT team to implement those controls. And then afterwards, you can say, we have 100 out of 110 controls done. Like one example for that would be two-factor. So to log in, username and password, well, they might implement two-factor where you have to have a token to log in. That might be one of the controls. So if that kind of explains a little bit.
All right. Well, thank you for your input.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, I think it's good that we have something so we can monitor it over time and make sure that these things are actually followed through with and completed.
Any other questions or comments on it? Okay.
So moved.
Okay, I got a motion by Rick Seiler, and I guess I'll second it for the cybersecurity services. There's no other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Ambulance agreement update.
Yes, so I just kind of figured we should start talking. We have our quarterly meetings with, North Ambulance and have been for the last couple of years. Usually it is, the mayor, Chief Rinda, Chief Applin, and myself that will meet with them. Just kind of go over how operations have been, whether we have any concerns, over the last quarter or so, and kind of how they see things going. But our current contract, which I have put in your packet, does expire here at the end of April. And so I know we initially entered into a 3-year contract with them last time because we weren't quite sure. If you remember right, we went out to bid and ultimately chose to stay with North Memorial. I think the reasoning, if I recollect at the time, was that we didn't really have any complaints with them. I know at the public hearing, we had people on both sides stand up and say, hey, like, you should choose this or you should choose this, but really we had no complaints with North Memorial. I think over the last 3 years, we continue to add to that. I know Chief Rinda couldn't be here tonight, but he had, he certainly expressed his desire that his recommendation would be to stay with North Memorial at that point. And I guess I won't speak for Chief Alpin along those lines, knowing he also works with them. I know administratively, I have no complaints, I guess, at this point working with North Memorial. As we kind of look forward, I know that there are certain services, especially as you look out into greater Minnesota, that are starting to have to subsidize their ambulances to some point, just because numbers aren't physically penciling out for the runs needed to balance the costs and whatnot. Initial conversations with them sound like that they're not going to request a subsidy. I guess their request at this point, it sounds like, would either be to maintain or slightly lower rent, if I'm remembering that, because we kind of talked about it a little bit, Chuck.
Yes.
Just that with where Medicaid and Medicare are currently paying, and those two being about 50% of their payers, like they struggle to make their budgets meet every single month. So they certainly requested, if they could, that our next agreement be anywhere from 5 to 10 years, just so that way they know that they've got a little more of assurances as they make large financial capital purchases such as an ambulance, that they're going to actually be able to continue to use that going forward. So we're not making a decision tonight, but I kind of wanted to start the conversations from you guys, since the current contract does run out here in about 4 months, or 4.5 months or so. Kind of where you guys are at with this, and I guess personally, I wouldn't mind a slightly larger contract, so we don't have to do this every 3 years. And there are certainly outs in there. So for some reason that we had something go wrong, I know last time we put an out in here to be able to get us out. Obviously,
I don't know if that's gonna be as fair as what you kind of passed over everything real fast. I mean, we opened that up, we had 3 ambulance services that bidded on it.
we had 2. So we only had North Memorial and Mayo were the only ones that wanted it. And I'll admit, Rick, I don't know if Mayo wants it anymore.
And nobody stepped up and, or approached the city indicating that they wanted to, okay.
I know there have been times since then that Mayo has said if you guys are ever interested in actually turning over your license, they'd be interested. But to me, since conversation since then, it didn't sound like there was a ton of interest in picking up a service license like this. Whereas North, in fact, in our last meeting recommended we hold on to our license and not give it up. And they'd be willing to work through our license, so.
Yeah.
Well, I just noticed that after we did that 3-year, they kind of put younger people onto their crews. And they're a little slower. I had one ambulance go down the wrong road up by the city center there. And had to go all the way around and then come in. So I was it just seemed like last time when we did it for 3 years, they kind of said, oh, we got this made now. And so I don't know.
Well, just kind of reiterate what Chief Rinda said regarding when he goes to these chief meetings. He said that a lot of other chiefs and communities were stating that don't get rid of North. They have a lot of issues with Mayo and a lot of issues with the other Alina deals, and they said, you guys are very fortunate to have, that's the comments he got from these chief meetings that he goes to in the area, so. But again, we don't have to make a decision tonight, I think one thing we have to look at is, obviously, they're not asking for any subsidies, but we also have to look at, we're kind of changing the space that they have at the new facility, regarding rent, or do we not charge them rent or whatever? Because, now they're just basically having, a couple garages and.
So at the moment, they do still have, I think, a little bit of their sleeping facilities, but yeah, Chief Rinda did move some vehicles around to allow them space in the fire bays there, so they can actually keep their rigs indoors, but, yeah, obviously during the construction process, they've had to move around a little bit, so.
Right. So,
Okay.
all right, so that's something we can address, first quarter.
I'll certainly keep it on your radar. I know they were gonna go back and talk to their higher ups to see if they had any requests, but their initial request at this point was to get to something 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, they said they're accounting people like fives.
I don't think we have a whole lot of time to waste.
No.
So, and,
No.
I do think we need to make sure we stay with a competitive rental agreement. I mean, it is a service that we're obviously providing a better service than we had before with what we're renting.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember painfully the process we went through last time.
Yes.
And there was advocates on both sides of it, and I can guarantee you that we can find people that would complain about one or the other.
Yep.
And depending on who you ask and what side you're on before, you can ante that up. But the previous financial statements we were getting at that time did incorporate kind of administrative costs that were going to North Memorial home base, kind of. And it was never really understood how they did. Then they kind of worked through that and changed that now to this format, which I think is fine. It's kind of hard always to follow through where the money is flowing and what it is. But I guarantee you that there's any business, there's a value to it, even if you're showing you're losing money on it.
Right.
They don't do this for nothing.
No, that's true.
And North Memorial, if you remember, is a very fine, very good experience with them. But part of the benefit they expressed to us is that they have this whole certain area, and they work together and they save costs because I think it's Faribault and
Waseca.
I forget
Faribault, Waseca, and New Prague.
There's some other ones, so it works for them. So obviously we wouldn't want to see somebody go, but I mean, but I don't think we should necessarily automatically reduce the rent or anything like that, is my opinion. But
Yeah, we can discuss that when we get more into the agreement and deciding on what we want to move forward on that. So then I guess the next thing is we're back to, now we added H, microfiche. Where are we?
The laserfiche, yeah.
Laserfiche.
So,
Laserfiche, well,
yeah, so just to recap, so I understand the service, there's gonna be software sitting on our servers that will allow us to communicate with Laserfiche, and assuming that, we're passing documents to them for them to store in the cloud or a data center. Okay.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Yep,
I
yeah.
just wanted to make sure that
Yes,
I understood the whole,
Yeah, yeah.
so, okay,
We have the software and the scanners that then shoots it up to Laserfiche.
okay.
And those Laserfiche documents are then searchable.
Yeah,
in
I
a
get all
far
that.
format than what we have.
I've used software, similar software.
Okay.
So my only concern was being able to cancel the contract if we're locked in for 5 years and there is a security breach, there is some other situation that causes angst for the city, that we are able to cancel that contract with cause,
Okay.
okay?
So I guess I would say and not knowing if they're gonna be willing to do that, I'd say, and if we wanna try to lock in the reduced prices right now, options could be either A, going with the 5-year if they'll allow us to put a for cause in there, or B, just having them offer up the short-term contract where this year's price is still the same, but they just don't guarantee anything going forward.
How quickly would you be able to communicate with them to see if they would amend their agreement? It's a slight amendment, we would have to have some cause, and there's language such as the parties will work in good faith to resolve any blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. To put that in there, but if there's something that really is serious, then we shouldn't have to pay for a 5-year contract.
Yeah, I mean, I can't guarantee they'll email back with the holiday season, but I know that Robin and her team have been in contact with them, so I have to imagine we'd be able to reach out and get some information from them soon.
Or some assurances, because right now, they have no risk. There's even a limitation on
Yep.
what they're responsible for and how legally, we can only recoup the cost of the contract. We cannot recoup any more money in the event that something worse happens. So that's a risk for the city.
Yeah, see if they can change the verbiage and give us the pricing if we approved it the first meeting in January.
Or do you need that? Is it time sensitive?
I don't think they'll approve the pricing extended past January 1.
Okay,
They're pretty clear that we needed a signed agreement by December 31st. I think they'll be really responsive to the contract language. They've been really responsive before. Like, I mean, I don't want to promise this, but within an hour, within a couple hours, they've responded to us. I can certainly ask about extending it to January 5th, but because they brought it forward to us with the sense of urgency for December 31st, I don't see them.
Maggie, can you make, we do like a motion and then it doesn't go through until for sure she's got the information that we want, so that way they
Well,
can do it
that's
administratively?
that's my intent, but I want to make sure the city
I
is
agree,
protected.
I agree with you totally.
I guess along those lines, the council could authorize Chuck and myself, because we would both have to be signers on it, to talk with Laserfish and either A, do the 5-year if they can put some for cause language in there, or B, do the shorter term without the guarantee, so that way we do have that easier out.
Would you be good with that, Maggie?
Are you comfortable with that? Do you want me to be part of that conversation?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess you could authorize, yourselves and
Perfect.
myself to work through that with Laserfish over the next few days.
So should we do that in a motion or
Yeah, we can do that.
so move?
Okay,
Right how you need to.
I'll second.
okay, we got a motion by Rick and a second by Sean on reaching out to
Laserfish.
Laserfish and see if we can get some addendums done to the contract, and then if it's approved, if it satisfies Maggie, then,
Unless you really want to go back to microfiche, but I think that's like. A
well, you know, I'm just showing my age, okay? So if there's any other
Chuck, go find
questions?
that for us on the
Yeah.
microfiche, will you?
Okay, I got a motion and a second. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. Miscellaneous.
Can I go first?
Yes, are you done?
Well, I'd like to hear that gentleman over there, the Cub Scout. Are you working on a badge there, bud? Yeah. What's your name? Trevor. Well, welcome.
You're on TV now.
If you got any questions, let us know.
So is this what, a community service merit badge, or? Yeah. Okay, good. I did ask him to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and he didn't want to show us up, so he declined, so.
You're okay,
Welcome.
bud. Welcome.
Next time you should check with us, we'll give you a shorter meeting. All right.
Of note,
I'm
before you
done.
guys swing around the horn, I was gonna say, we do have the quarterly update from North Ambulance there in the packet for you
Yep.
guys to review sometime. I guess nothing groundbreaking. You will note that it seems like the numbers are way off from last year. They in fact are way off from last year, but it's because they are accounting for their runs a little bit differently.
Right.
It used to be that they accounted for them by truck, so if the new Prague truck ended up down in Faribault and picked up 2 runs before coming back, those would get counted to that truck. Now they're doing them actually in New Prague. So if for some reason a Faribault truck ended up here, instead of those numbers going to Faribault, they're gonna come to New Prague. So the numbers are gonna be off kind of this year versus last year as they're trying to get a clearer picture of what's actually happening here in New Prague, not necessarily with the New Prague truck.
Yes, they did mention that. Anything else, Rick?
Nope.
Bruce?
Nothing.
Maggie? Sean?
Just a quick question, something I'd like to add maybe to the next meeting, we don't have to discuss it right now, but something's been kind of sticking in my craw a little bit, and that's our policy of items not on the agenda and allowing people to talk. I'd like to hear from them. I understand the need for maybe a time limit, and we don't need to hear the same thing from 30 people, but if they want to talk on something on the agenda, I'd like them to be able to make a statement and go on the record. I don't know how we kind of got away from that. It always used to be that way. And I know we can't always give them answers that it requires, but we can at least listen to them and hear them, acknowledge their question, their problem, their issue, whatever it is, and then direct city staff to get them the answer that they need, and we can get it at a later date.
Each and every subject that we're working on?
If somebody wants to
like
come
down
up
the-
and talk about the snowplow or whatever,
they can't
I
do
don't
that
get,
already.
no, I understand that, but if they wanna talk on anything that is on the agenda, I wanna make sure that we're giving them adequate time. So a situation came up tonight where Brian wanted to comment on something that was on
And he did, yeah.
the agenda, but during that segment, technically, he probably shouldn't have been able to. You allowed it to go on, but
So I guess how about I do this, Sean? One, we do have that speaking policy. We can just bring it back to discuss the speaking policy just in a larger context.
sure.
And 2, I wonder if even just rewording number 4 from public invited to be heard on matters not on the agenda to public invited to be heard on matters that do not have a public hearing or something like that.
Yeah.
Just to
Sure.
open it up that if for some reason we are talking about the visioning document and that's not a public hearing, so Chuck is not gonna open it up, but that does allow someone then if they want to give their opinion at least right there.
Just a miscellaneous section for the general public. Yes, I agree, and I
That's what
I
I
didn't
used
like
to
the
do.
gotcha that sometimes where they put you guys on the spot and you couldn't answer them, and, you know.
I tend to not like that. So
I agree. I know
if
where
anybody
it
can
came
give
from.
me questions beforehand, we can try to get them answered by the
Right.
meeting, but.
Right,
Right.
right.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand. I mean, an open mic, I'd like it when they can come up and talk about whatever issue that we're working on, you know, and
Yeah.
the problem with that was my last city, you would get,
That's why I think a time limit or something, and I don't know what the right answer is, and maybe.
Well, I think that just the wording
I
is
think
that,
that helps a lot.
and I don't know, I've always been, even, before, if someone was sitting in the crowd and they didn't talk, I would reach out to them and say, are you here for shits and giggles, or,
We want something to say.
want something to say? Most of them are, no, I'm just here, so, type of thing, so.
Okay.
Yeah, just maybe just the wording.
I support that, but I do support also that we don't enter into answering questions. I do
Yeah,
think
you don't,
otherwise they pin you down.
It gets to a gotcha moment, and also then we go into a rabbit hole. We're trying to, the flowers are on this side of my property line, and that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
But yeah, I can put that policy on just for here in the near future, just to discuss the overall policy on how we may wanna do that.
Okay.
anything from anyone on the panel? No? Mitch, you got anything? Patrick, you still with us? Okay. The only thing I have is there any update on the 250th celebration? Reach out to the chamber or anything?
Not at this point. I am
Okay.
kind of pulling together a few staff members to kind of work. Just as a reminder on that, I'm gonna see if we haven't really focused any city resources towards this, but I figure we could kind of use some connections to at least build a committee and then kind of pass off the item to the more community-led committee than actual city staff,
Yeah.
so.
Because Paul Bush reached out to me, and he's kind of head of the fireworks.
Sounds like we just found the chair of our committee.
And, well, he would definitely want to be on the committee, but he already signed the contract for the fireworks on the 3rd. You know, and he says that the 4th is out because they're booked
Okay.
out, you know, years in advance. That was his concern, because it popped up in the paper about the conversation with Dennis Dvorak, and it was kind of brought up, and I think I was the one who brought it up, well, maybe we can move the fireworks to the 4th, and he said.
Paul didn't like that.
Well, no, he just said, I already signed the contract for the, you know, to get the, you know, and he did say he's got extra money this year, so it's probably gonna be the biggest show that we ever had, but he is willing to serve on that committee. You know, so I just was wondering where we stood on that, so,
He does a great job, I like Paul.
yes. So, if there's nothing else for everyone,
Move to adjourn?
okay, I got a motion by Rick, I will second that. If there's nothing else, I wish, before we leave, I want to wish everyone a happy holiday season, and we will see you guys next year.
Thank you,
So-
guys.
All in favor?
Yep, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? We're out of here, thank you.
I saw the ad in the paper, Maggie, for the.
Oh, I gotta
that?
go home and soak
Police
my
officer.
arm in a nice hot shower.
Yeah, I thought we were full.
I did too. I was just gonna ask Tim if someone's leaving.
They need to, they wanna redo the, and then I ripped the tendon out of my bicep.
I'm just,
You fall or something?
Yeah. I went to
No,
fall
I
and
was
had my
just kidding.
countertop, and
I always like to keep Mitch on his toes too, because a lot of
I'm
times
telling you,
Mitch.
I cried, it was that.
Does it hurt now then?
Oh. Huh?
Does it hurt now then?
Only when I use it.
You know, I brought black pen now all the time, so that way Alicia doesn't go, that had to be in black.
Hey, Josh, was there any kind of overall computer update or anything? My computer